Do you trust the British police?
I do. But, remember my experience with the police in Nigeria was very negative. And coming to the UK, my first experience with the police was very positive. The police in Nigeria would rob us.
Hi friends, welcome back to Explorewithsu. Warm greetings to you and thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel and support your girl right here. And I thank you all, those of you who have already subscribed to this channel. Nigerians don't often feel a sense of belonging in their own country. Instead, many experience fear and anxiety. In this Kemi Badenoch's interview, she openly criticized Nigeria's justice system and expresses her frustration, speaking her mind in a way many wish they could but don't have the courage to do, especially when it involves the Nigerian government. Kemi's words reflect a deep frustration that she has carried from childhood to present. Her honesty and boldness are striking, and I believe her sentiments resonate with many Nigerians. Now let's dive into the rest of the video. Share your thoughts in the comments below about your perspective. Do you agree or disagree with her statements?
Kemi Badenoch, welcome to Honestly.
Thank you, Barry. It's lovely to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. Well, I want to start out at the beginning of your life for those who have not yet encountered you as I have. So you were born in the UK, but then your family moved back to Lagos, Nigeria when you were very young, and you were raised there for the first 16 years of your life. Now, in those years, Nigeria had a series of military coups. Inflation reached 40%. Life expectancy was around 46 years old, and by the end of the decade, 43% of Nigerians lived below the poverty line. Tell us about your childhood growing up in Nigeria and how this political and economic context shaped your character and shaped your politics.
So it certainly shaped my character, but my family shaped my character a lot more. I was born into a relatively wealthy family, and I was born in January 1980. This is just as the oil boom is taking off in the country in the 70s. Everybody's got lots of money, and my family is doing well, partly because of that.
But they're not in oil. Your dad is
no. But he was a doctor who had lots of oil company, patients, and he worked for them to some extent as well. They would send their patients to him. So he didn't work for the companies, but he treated them and got paid very well. And my grandmother, who grew up never learning how to read or write, was poor. She made a lot of money from trading. So she was my, initial inspiration. This woman who could never read or write, but she made so much money. She sent some of her children to the US to study, paid all the fees. Not my dad, but others, and they're still here. I still have family here because of what she did back in the 60s. But what really shaped me was watching the decline of the family wealth because of terrible economic policies that the country was having. And I tell people that it was socialism, and they say, oh, it wasn't socialism, it was just a military dictatorship. And this is one of the things which I referenced in the speech that I gave in Washington a couple of days ago, that people keep saying, oh, it's not socialism because it doesn't call itself that, but it is. It was the government owning everything, deciding which businesses would run and which ones wouldn't run by decree. It was, the government choosing which school you would go to. For secondary school, I wasn't able to pick the school. The government decided you will go to this school. And sometimes they send people thousands of miles away. And one day, for example, the water just stopped running. And it was just a state-run water company, just couldn't cope, and we ended up having to dig a borehole and get our own water. But for a long period, I had to go out fetch water. So I tell people that I know what it is like to be wealthy and also to not have any money, to be poor. By the time I moved to the UK in 1996, there was virtually nothing left, hyperinflation and so on. And my dad gave me the equivalent of what was his last £100 and said, good luck, because I really wanted to come back to the UK and I had a British passport. So all of those experiences have shaped my view of the world, that even if you're wealthy, things can disappear. And you have to work very hard to maintain not just your family, but also your country. Otherwise, it'll degrade. Things aren't always going to be the way they are. You've got to make sure that you culture and cultivate what is good about your society, or you will lose it.
Margaret Thatcher, the 80s, of course. Margaret Thatcher is running the UK at that time. What did your family think of her, and what were the politics like of your family growing up?
My family was not very political. If you're growing up, or if you're living, I should say, in a military dictatorship, there's no politics. It's soldiers. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really come into it. And there wasn't a very vibrant sort of academic atmosphere in certain places where you would debate Marxism or socialism. My parents were academics, but they were scientists. My parents were doctors, and my mother taught at university. I never saw that sort of thing. So the politics was very social and cultural. This is how you behave. This is what's normal. This is what you're expected to do. And it was very much about standards and excellence, because it's a very competitive country. There are only so many university places. You have to do well, or you will fail. And you look out the window and there are loads of examples of people who either failed or never had a chance in the first place. So the risk is very clear to you. There's no social security, there's no benefit system, there's no safety net. Safety net is only family. So people have lots of children because that's what looks after you when you get old, and that makes a difference. On Margaret Thatcher, everybody knew who she was. It was Margaret Thatcher, Michael Jackson. They're like just a handful of icons that transcended, and she was one of them. I don't know.
Do you trust the British police?
I do. But remember, my experience with the police in Nigeria was very negative. And coming to the UK, my first experience with the police was very positive. The police in Nigeria would rob us. So when people say, I had this bad experience with the police because I'm black and they're white, I was like, well, I remember the police stole my brother's shoes and his watch.
His shoes?
Yeah, they took his shoes and his watch. It's a very poor country. So, people do all sorts of things, and giving people a gun is just a license to intimidate. But that's not the bar we should use for British police. Obviously, it should be much higher. But my experience was so positive. When I was burgled, for example, the police were there, very helpful. They eventually caught the person. This is 2004, so 20 years ago. The police did catch criminals, and now we've given them too much to do, in my view. So the police are the first line of defense for everything. And I think that burden makes it a lot harder for them to actually do the basics. And that's another thing that we need to look at.
Let's talk about some of the social issues that have exploded here in the US and all.
Most Nigerians are afraid to speak out, especially when it concerns the government. These days, even the smallest criticism can lead to accusations of defamation. Common citizens are constantly exploited. Just a few weeks ago, someone I know personally, a pharmacist, was harassed by police at his shop. They made baseless demands, but what they were really after was money. In another instance, someone I know was stopped by police simply because he looked wealthy. They began questioning him, and before long, they were demanding money. It's crazy, right? These things are happening in Nigeria currently. This kind of environment creates fear, anxiety, and panic among people. That's why I believe Kemi Badenoch is simply saying what many Nigerians wish they could say, but are too afraid to voice out. And even those who claim to be shocked or disappointed by her words know deep down that she's telling the truth. The reality is bitter, and the government would rather want the people to pretend everything is fine, that people are well fed, secure, and living a good life with a thriving economy. But the truth is the complete opposite. People are hungry, many can't afford rent, and the cost of living is unbearably high. The sad reality is that nothing will change unless Nigerians collectively stand up and speak the truth. Things will continue as they are until there's unity in addressing these issues. If more people were as bold as Kemi Badenoch or other activists, the country would be forced to reckon with the truth. After all, they can't jail everyone for speaking out. What she said in this video is just a fraction of what's in the heart of millions of Nigerians. Just imagine how much more truth would come to light if there was true freedom of speech. Alright guys, what are your thoughts on Kemi Badenoch's statement? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Just a reminder that on this channel we do not promote hate speech or violence. All we share is insightful information to learn, to educate ourselves. So guys, it's your girl Susu here, and I thank you so much for watching once again. I will see you in the next video. Peace and love.